This happened a few weeks ago. I'm 32 now, working as a freelance graphic designer. I took up some odd jobs at a local art gallery. I thought it would inspire me. The building was old and filled with character. Its musty smell reminded me of memories that never quite left. At night, after closing, I would finish my tasks while outside the world went dark. One evening, while shutting down, I noticed a new painting. It was colorful, almost alive. I hadn't seen it before. I felt a strange pull towards it. I hesitated, then touched the canvas. It felt warm, like it was breathing. That night, I began returning to the painting. Entranced by its beauty, I started to notice weird things about it. The reflections in the glass looked strange. Sometimes, the colors seemed to change when I blinked. Whispers? I thought I heard whispers floating from it, but I wasn't sure. On another night, the gallery was empty. I stood alone, staring at the painting. The urge to enter it grew stronger. My heart raced. I stepped in closer, and suddenly the canvas rippled like water. I hesitated but couldn't pull myself away. Before I could think, something pulled me inside the painting. Everything went black. When I opened my eyes, I was in that painted world. It was stunning but eerily quiet. The colors were brighter but felt cold. I wanted to call out, but no sound came. I thought maybe someone would find me, but as time passed, panic set in. I wandered through this strange landscape. I felt the air shift around me. What is this place? I realized I was lost. My heart sank. I imagined someone finding the gallery empty, the vibrant painting still hanging there. It was like I was trapped in a waking nightmare. Then I heard it again, the whispers. They echoed all around me. I couldn't tell where they were coming from. Fear washed over me. I needed to find a way out. As I searched, a figure caught my eye. It stood in the distance, just watching me. My spine tingled. I felt paralyzed. Was this part of the painting too? I blinked hard, trying to confirm what I saw. It didn't move. I let out a shaky breath. It might have been my imagination. Then it began to move. I couldn't tear my eyes away. My heart raced faster. Was it coming for me? Panic gripped my chest. What do you want? I shouted, my voice sounding small in this bizarre universe. The figure continued to approach slowly. I felt cold dread washing over me. I spun around, looking for any way to escape, but there was nothing. I barely recognized the landscape anymore. The vibrant colors twisted into something sinister. My mind raced. I didn't know if I would ever get out of here. This can't be real. I was scared, and all I wanted was to wake up. But nothing came. The figure was getting closer. The whispering grew louder, wrapping around me. I knew this was my reality now. The figure moved closer, its outline sharpening against the vibrant backdrop of the painted world. My throat tightened as the whispers intensified, swirling around me like a storm. What do you want? I shouted again, but my voice felt swallowed by the surreal landscape. I took a step back, my feet sinking into the soft ground. Suddenly, the colors shifted. The gentle blues turned dark and murky, swallowing the brightness. It felt like the painting was alive, aware of me, and angry. My pulse thundered in my ears, and I had to remind myself to breathe. In the distance, I spotted a path winding through the chaos of colors. Maybe if I followed it, I could find someone or something that would help. I turned and stumbled toward it, the strange noises growing in intensity. Shadows flickered at the edges of my vision, but I dared not look back. I didn't want to know what awaited me. As I ran, I noticed peculiar shapes amidst the swirling colors, almost like characters from the painting itself. They seemed to watch me, lost souls trapped like I was. Their eyes were hollow, but their mouths moved, silent screams that echoed in my ears. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. Help! I cried, but the words felt useless. No one could hear me. I pressed on, driven by the need to escape. The path twisted and turned, leading me deeper into this strange world. My mind raced with questions. How did I get here? Was there a way out? Finally, I reached a clearing. It was a massive mural, a collage of scenes from the painting, all jumbled together. At the center stood a large, cracked mirror. My reflection stared back at me, but instead of my concerned face, it wore a look of despair. The image warped and flickered, the sadness in its eyes deepening. I stepped closer, drawn to it. What is happening to me? I whispered, expecting no answer. But then, a voice emerged from the mirror. You have to leave before it consumes you. The reflection's lips moved in sync with the voice, but I could see other images behind a terrifying scene swirling and shadowed. I stepped back instinctively. Consume? What did that even mean? A loud crack filled the air, shattering the moment of clarity. The whispers escalated into a cacophony of sound. The figure I had seen before emerged from the shadows, now clearer, twisted and monstrous, with eyes like black voids that bore into me. It advanced, and something inside me shifted. I felt the painting's energy weighing down on me. The surroundings felt less like a world and more like a labyrinth with no escape. I couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. Then I saw it, the edges of the mural flickered. Light seeped through like a hidden door. Whatever I needed to do, I had to do it now. I sprinted toward the light, heart racing. The figure lunged after me, shadows reaching out to grasp me. Just as my fingertips grazed the glowing entrance, everything went dark. I screamed, but no sound came out. I was falling, swallowed by the painting's darkness. The weight of despair clung to me, dragging me down. I don't want to be part of this. I shouted silently, and just like that, I landed on a cold, hard surface. Everything was still. My breaths echoed around me, a reminder of my existence. But I still wasn't sure if I was free or if this was merely another layer of the nightmare. The whispers faded, left with a lingering threat. That's when I realized the painting still hung on the gallery wall, more vibrant than ever. I blinked, trying to adjust to the dim light of the gallery. The colors of the painting before me were striking, yet I felt a lingering dread. Just moments ago, I had been chased by shadows and despair. Now, I stood still, gripping the edge of a pedestal, half scared to move. Was this place really safe? As my heart rate slowed, I decided to approach the painting again. I needed answers. But when I stepped close, the whispers returned, soft and alluring, almost like a lullaby. I could hear phrases like "come back and join us" entwined in their melody. I shivered, an internal warning flashing in my mind. I scanned the rest of the gallery. No signs of life, just my echoing breaths as I drifted from one piece to another. Then something caught my attention. In the corner, I noticed a small, old notebook resting on a side table. It looked out of place amid the modern displays. Curiosity got the better of me, and I picked it up. Flipping through the pages, I discovered sketches of figures much like those I had seen trapped in the painting. Half-finished, haunting images filled the pages. A cold shiver shot down my spine. There were many sketches, each one more distorted than the last. As I studied the last few pages, the scribbles morphed into names I didn't recognize. But beside each name was a date written in faded ink. That's when I glanced over my shoulder. The gallery still felt empty, but the atmosphere itself shifted. I sensed a presence, like a breath whispering across my neck. I turned quickly, but the air was still. Had I imagined it? I returned to the notebook, my heart racing. The entries were dated over several years, each one corresponding with significant events or exhibits held in the gallery. I could feel a pattern forming, but I couldn't make sense of it. The last drawing was particularly unsettling, depicting a creature resembling the figure I had fled from, a twisted being that seemed to reach out from the page. Panic surged through me again. I snapped the notebook shut and set it down. I had to leave. With determination, I moved toward the entrance, but the gallery door was now a solid wall. I pressed against it, but it wouldn't budge. How was that possible? A low growl echoed from within the shadows of the painting. I froze. The figure had followed me. It was in here with me. Then, without warning, spots of color began swirling in the painting once more, swirling around like a tempest. Suddenly, the whispers grew louder, begging me to stay, to join them as the ground trembled beneath me. I stumbled backward, and the images shifted violently, forming a dark portal. All my instincts screamed at me to run, but I had nowhere to go. With a final flicker of light, I realized dreadfully that the painted worlds weren't just traps. They were hungry. And I was their next meal. The swirling colors pulled at me like a riptide. I stumbled back, my heart racing, and felt the rough edge of the pedestal dig into my palm. Panic clawed at my throat. The whispers twined around my thoughts, urging me closer to the portal. I blinked hard. I needed to think. Looking around, I searched for something, anything, that could help me escape. My eyes landed on the notebook I had just set down. I rushed back to it, feeling the ground shift beneath me. The air thickened, vibrating with energy. It was as if the gallery itself was breathing, hungry for me. I flipped the pages frantically, searching for clues. The last drawing haunted me. The creature's eyes seemed to follow me, mocking my fear. Among the names, I saw one that made my stomach drop: Emily Van Doren. That name had been buzzing in my mind ever since I had entered this place. She was the one who had gone missing years ago, and her name was scrawled in that faded ink. Suddenly, a memory flashed: an article I had read about the gallery's history. Emily had disappeared during an opening night event. The gallery had been filled with vibrant art, but it had turned chaotic when the lights flickered out. They had never found her. Was this her warning? I looked back at the portal. It pulsed, drawing me toward it. I couldn't give in to the whispers, but the pull was irresistible. If Emily was here, could I reach her? Could there be a way to save her? Before I could think twice, I grasped the notebook tightly and screamed, "Emily!" My voice echoed in the silence, merging with the growls that now resonated from the painting. The swirling colors stilled for a moment, and then, through the dark portal, I saw a flicker of light. A shadow edged closer, revealing a figure: a woman with anguished eyes. A chill washed over me as I recognized her. It was Emily. At that moment, I was torn. Should I step into the portal and try to rescue her, or would I be trapped as well? But she reached out, the desperation in her eyes pleading with me. I could feel the warmth of my resolve wavering. "Help me!" she cried, her voice barely piercing through the whispers that surrounded us. Without thinking, I dashed toward the portal, clutching the notebook. But just as I was about to plunge in, a dark tendril slithered in front of me, blocking my path. It writhed like a serpent, dripping with color and malice. I froze again. I was too close now. I had to make a choice: trust Emily and risk everything, or give in to the gallery's hunger that felt almost tangible. That was when I saw it, a glimmer on the floor beneath my feet, reflecting the colors of the painting. It shimmered, beckoning me to take hold. I could only hope it was the break I needed. The shadows growled louder, and doubt crept back in. I only had moments left. With a deep breath, I lunged forward, determined to take that leap of faith. Would it be my salvation or my end? The moment I lunged, everything shifted. The tendril lunged forward, but I wasn't hesitant anymore. I dropped to the ground, reaching for the glimmering object. My fingers grazed it, and as I lifted it, I realized it was a small prism. It caught the light from the portal and sent rainbows bouncing off the walls. With the prism in my hand, I felt a surge of clarity wash over me. I wasn't just an observer anymore. I had a tool, something that might help me confront this madness. I stood up and faced the portal again. Emily's figure wavered, her expression shifting from fear to determination. "Emily!" I shouted again, my voice cutting through the noise. "I'll help you. Just hold on." As if my words had power, the portal surged with energy. The tendril pulled back, and the swirling colors brightened. I took a step closer, trapped between hope and dread. Had I just stirred something even more dangerous? The shadows coiled tighter around me, but now I felt more resolute. I held up the prism, its surface reflecting vibrant colors, creating a shield against the darkness. The whispers morphed, they sounded furious, their melody discordant. "Emily, reach for this. I called out, extending my arm. The look in her eyes changed to one of recognition. She stepped forward, inching toward me. The shadows whipped around her, trying to pull her back, but I couldn't let that happen. With every ounce of strength I had, I yelled, "I won't let them take you." In a sudden burst, the prism emitted a brilliant light. The colors enveloped both Emily and me, pushing back the dark tendrils with a radiant force. I felt the energy swell, lifting me off the ground. The world around me flickered, merging the gallery's interior with the colors and shapes from the portal, but then, with a violent crash, the light dissipated, and I was thrown backward, landing on the cold floor of the gallery. I gasped, the air rushing back into my lungs. The prism rolled from my hand and slid to a halt at Emily's feet. What just happened? I panted, looking around. The gallery was eerily quiet, the portal now just a canvas, with the painting still alive but no longer swirling. Emily knelt, her expression puzzled as she picked up the prism. "I thought it would pull me in," she said, her voice trembling. "But it pushed you out." My heart sank. "So you're still trapped?" "Yes," she replied, her voice cracking. "I can't let you in again. The energy it contained, it's a connection, I can feel it, but it's dangerous." As I stood up, a sense of urgency gripped me. "Then let us figure something out. We can't leave this like this." Emily shook her head, glancing back at the painting. "You don't understand. There is something in there, something alive that doesn't want to be disturbed. We might have awakened it." Suddenly, the shadows began to gather, coiling around the edges of the portal again. I felt a chill creep down my spine. The whispers were back, louder this time and filled with a palpable anger. Then a figure emerged from the darkness behind the painting. It was massive, its features obscured by swirling colors. My breath caught in my throat. "Run," Emily urged, her voice barely above a whisper. That's when everything changed. I realized we were running out of time. What had started as a quest to save Emily might lead to something much worse. I stumbled back as the figure loomed larger, its ambiguous shape shifting like liquid shadows. Panic surged through me, overwhelming my senses. I grabbed Emily's arm, my heart racing. "We have to get out of here." The whispers escalated into a cacophony, pressing in on me. I could almost hear words amidst the chaos, but they blended together a terrifying symphony of threats and secrets. I tried to pull Emily away, but she hesitated, transfixed by the swirling mass. "Emily, come on!" I shouted, desperate. I couldn't let her be caught by whatever was in that painting. Her eyes were wide, fear and determination battling within her. "I need to understand what this is." I felt frustration boil over. "Understand later. We're not safe." The shadows around the painting pulsed violently, as if the entity was awakening. I turned back to the portal. It seemed to hum, alive and aware. Maybe the prism was the key, but I needed a plan. "We have to find a way to close it," I said, my mind racing, and the whispers grew louder, vicious tendrils shooting out like the fingers of a nightmarish creature, reaching for us. I quickly scanned the gallery, spotting an old easel nearby. Without thinking, I dashed toward it. "Get ready!" I called to Emily, trying to keep her focused. If I could block the portal, maybe it would stop whatever was trying to escape. I grabbed the easel and turned it toward the portal just as another shadowy tendril lunged toward us. I swung the easel with all my strength. The wood collided with the darkness, and for a moment, it felt like the energy of the prism amplified. A blast of light erupted, illuminating the gallery and pushing the darkness back for a fleeting instant. Emily gasped, her resolve wavering. "What did you do?" "I don't know," I admitted, my heart racing. "But we can't stop now." With more energy than I thought I had, I lunged again, pushing the easel closer to the portal. The shadows shrieked, and I could feel the heat of their fury. Emily joined me, gripping the prism and raising it high. "Think about what it did before," she shouted. "Whatever it is, it doesn't want us here." The tendrils recoiled, as if the light from the prism had temporarily held them at bay. I didn't look back, I could feel something horrific building behind me. I leaned into the easel, feeling the resistance of the shadows as they twisted and writhed. Then, I heard a low growl, deep and menacing, rolling from the depths of the darkness. "Move!" I yelled, pulling Emily away, but it was too late. The corners of the gallery warped, and a shadowy figure broke free, its edges sharp and jagged. The air crackled with energy as it surged forward. Instinct kicked in. I turned to run, dragging Emily behind me. The gallery felt like it was closing in, the walls bending with malevolence. "Where do we go?" Emily cried, her voice swallowed by the chaos. "Anywhere but here," I shouted back. There had to be a way to escape this nightmare. That's when I saw a door at the far end of the gallery, its surface stained and warped but intact. "Over there." I pointed, and we barreled toward it, chased by a deep, haunting growl that echoed in my ears. The shadows were relentless, clawing at our heels, but we weren't going to let them win. As we ran, my mind raced with questions. What had we awakened? How could we stop it? And more importantly, would we make it out alive? I pushed through the door, dragging Emily behind me. I slammed it shut just as I heard the growling intensify. The sound reverberated through the wood, a relentless reminder of the nightmare we had just escaped. We were in a narrow hallway, dimly lit and eerily quiet. "What now?" Emily gasped, glancing back at the door. "Let us keep moving," I said, scanning the corridor for an exit. The last thing I wanted was to stay in one place too long. I could almost feel the shadows creeping after us, lurking just beyond the door. The hallway twisted and turned, and I felt like we were running deeper into some unknown maze. "We need to find a window or a way out," I muttered. My mind raced with thoughts of what we had just faced. The painting, the portal, that monstrous figure, it could all return at any moment. Then Emily stopped, pulling me to a halt. "Look," she said, pointing at a door slightly ajar to our right. I hesitated but saw the glimmer of light spilling through the crack. "Could be better than wandering in here forever," I replied, pushing the door open. Inside was a small room, filled with stacks of old canvases and art supplies. The walls were lined with odd paintings, their subjects twisted and distorted. My heart sank. This was not the sanctuary I had hoped for. "Do you think they're all like the one in the gallery?" Emily whispered, stepping into the room. "Let us not find out," I said firmly, my eyes darting around for anything we could use. That's when I noticed something on an easel, tucked away in the corner. "What's that?" I moved closer, and Emily followed. The painting showed a landscape of a bleak, stormy sky above a sea of dark waters. But the closer I got, the more I realized the sky was swirling with tiny figures, desperate and pleading. My skin crawled. "It's like they're trapped in there," Emily remarked, staring intently. "Do you think it could be connected?" "Connected?" I frowned. "As in, we're not the only ones who have wandered into this mess?" Before Emily could answer, the door slammed shut behind us with a thunderous bang. I jumped, adrenaline spiking anew. "What was that?" "Just the wind?" she suggested, though we both knew that was unlikely. Without warning, the painted landscape on the easel shimmered, and the figures began to move, their faces contorting in anguish. I backed away, horrified. "Does it look like they're trying to escape?" I breathed, my voice shaky. Emily stared, her mouth agape. "They're trying to warn us." Just then, the shadows began to seep into the room through the cracks beneath the door. I could feel a sense of dread wash over me. "We have to get out now." I grabbed Emily's arm again and rushed to the door, yanking on the handle. It wouldn't budge. "It's locked!" I shouted, panic clawing at my throat. "Help me!" she said, and together we slammed our bodies against it. The door shuddered but held firm. "Think!" I yelled, desperation creeping in. "What do we do?" That's when the figures in the painting began to cry out, their voices blending into a deafening chorus that echoed in my mind. In that moment, I realized, whatever was happening here was not just a trick of the shadows. Something wanted us, needed us. Then, without warning, the whole room shook. The walls began to tremble, and as I turned to face Emily, I saw her expression change. "I think it's too late," she whispered. I glanced back at the door. The tendrils of shadow were no longer just creeping, they were rushing toward us, hungry and relentless. The figures from the painting writhed in their canvas prison, and suddenly, the boundaries between reality and nightmare began to blur. "What do you see?" I shouted, battling the fear rising within. "Tell me." The shadows twisted, forming a gate behind us. The growl returned, now layered with voices, calling out in agony. My heart raced. Standing there in that fraying reality, we were faced with a choice: stay trapped or leap into the darkness. Before I could think, I felt myself being pulled toward those shadows, drawn to the chaos. And all I could do was scream. I felt myself being yanked into the darkness. The shadows wrapped around me, cold and suffocating, drowning out my screams. I couldn't see, couldn't think. All I could feel was the rush of something overpowering, something hungry. Suddenly, brightness flooded my vision, blinding me. I squinted, trying to make out the shapes around me. I was sprawled on a hard floor, gasping for air. Emily lay next to me, her eyes wide with confusion. "Are we?" She started, but her voice trailed off as she looked around. We were no longer in that small room. The surroundings were surreal, like stepping into the very painting we had seen. The dark waters stretched endlessly, lapping at the shoreline with jagged rocks. The sky churned overhead, gray clouds swirling ominously. I slipped to my feet, heart racing. "What's happening? Where are we?" I asked, trying to steady myself. The shadows of the room had followed us, twisted into grotesque forms at the edge of my vision. They writhed, almost eagerly, as though they had found stronger prey. "It looks like the painting," Emily whispered, eyes darting to the sea. I followed her gaze and my stomach dropped. There, bobbing along the surface, were the same figures from the canvas, their faces twisted in agony, hands grasping helplessly as though seeking rescue. "Why are they here?" I murmured, backing away from the water's edge. "How did we end up here?" Then, from the shadows behind us, a voice resonated, a low, echoing growl that sent shivers down my spine. "This is your domain now," it said, thick with malice. I turned quickly, but there was nothing there. Just the dark shapes contorting, shifting. I knew it wanted us. I could feel it. "We've got to find a way out," I said, trying to keep myself calm. I grabbed Emily's hand. "We can't stay here." As we started to walk along the shoreline, I could hear whispers floating through the air, incoherent yet urgent. They seemed to echo from the figures in the water, voices that felt both familiar and chilling. I leaned closer, straining to hear. "Help us!" I felt a jolt of recognition. "Do you hear that?" I asked, looking at Emily. "They're calling for help." With each step forward, the shadows grew bolder, darting closer. I could feel the weight of their hunger. I had to stay focused. "What if we help them?" I said, desperation shining through my words. "Maybe it will give us a way back." Emily frowned. "But they can't escape. They're trapped here for a reason." The figures in the water rose higher, their eyes pleading. I hesitated, fear battling with empathy. Then I saw something glimmer near the shore. A small, weathered or half buried in the sand. "It could be our chance. Look." I pointed. "If we can get them to the land, maybe we can find a way to break whatever spell is holding them." Emily nodded, and together we raced to the oar. As I lifted it, a wave crashed violently against the rocks, spilling water over my shoes. "Hurry!" I shouted as I felt the shadows shift. No longer just spectators. With renewed determination, we approached the water's edge. I could hear the figures crying out, their voices blending into a chilling chorus begging for release. The shadows lunged, swirling, and I knew we had to act fast. That's when I saw it. A larger shadow emerged from the depths, a creature formed from the swirling darkness, eyes glowing with rage. It was not just a guard of this place, it was the very essence of our nightmare. "Run!" I yelled, pulling Emily with me as the shadows closed in. We had to find a way to free the trapped souls, and fast. As we sprinted along the shore, with the growling entity in pursuit, there was only one thing on my mind: if we didn't break the connection, we might never escape this twisted reality. We ran, the sound of crashing waves drowned out by the rhythm of our pounding hearts. I could feel the presence of the creature behind us, its dark energy reaching out like tendrils, just waiting for the right moment to strike. Emily's grip on my hand tightened as we zigzagged around rocks jutting out of the ground. We can't outrun it forever, she gasped between breaths. I know, I shouted back, glancing at the figures in the water. They were still reaching for us, their faces etched with despair. What if we somehow used the oar to bring them closer? We might be able to pull them out. No. If we get too close, it could pull us in, she argued. I tried to think, my mind racing. We needed to buy time. As we ran, I spotted the jagged rocks framing the beach up ahead. If we could climb up, we might find a higher ground to hurl the oar at the figures. But would that help them? Would it even make a difference? Over there, I pointed to a cluster of large boulders. We can hide behind them. We sprinted toward the rocks, scrambling across the uneven ground. Just as we ducked behind a large boulder, I turned to look back at the water. The shadow surged forward, stretching toward us like a dark wave, the growling voice echoing louder, more furious. Suddenly, the air shifted, cold and heavy. I felt a surge of dread wash over me as the shadows froze in place, and I knew something was coming. What's happening? Emily whispered, her wide eyes mirroring my fear. The water surged violently, and before I could process what was happening, a massive wave crashed against the rocks. I braced myself as the spray soaked us, and in that moment, the figures in the water became more pronounced, their faces clearer, each one reflecting pure anguish. Then, I noticed something twisting in the water. It was a shimmering light, flickering beneath the waves. What is that? I exclaimed, pointing. Emily squinted, a mixture of hope and confusion on her face. Maybe it's a way to break whatever holds them here? I had to know. Stay here, I commanded, clenching the oar tightly. I'll check it out. What? No. You can't, Emily protested, grabbing my arm. But I was already moving, adrenaline coursing through me. I couldn't hear the shadow creature now, but I could feel its looming threat in the air. Taking a deep breath, I waded into the shallower part of the water, thrusting the oar toward the strange light. As the oar touched the water, it froze, sending ripples across the surface. Suddenly, the figures reached out with ghostly arms, their whispers intensifying, a cacophony of desperate pleas. Help us please! The shadows shifted behind me, the creature growing restless. A chilling chill wrapped around me, and everything went silent. I realized I wasn't alone anymore. I turned to see the massive shadow rise up behind me, hungry and angry. Get back, I yelled. But it was too late. The shadows launched forward, and I was trapped between them and the figures crying out for help. I could feel the weight of the oar in my hands. It started to glow, illuminating the dark waters. Emily, I shouted, bring me the others. And that's when everything changed. I could feel the energy of the oar coursing through me, its glow illuminating the dark water like a beacon. The figures reached out, their eyes wide with hope and desperation. Help us, they cried, their voices blending into one haunting echo. Behind me, I sensed the monstrous shadow rising, its form twisting and stretching as if ready to consume everything in its path. I didn't have much time. Emily, I yelled, glancing back at her. She stood at the rocks, eyes darting between the water and the encroaching darkness. I need you to trust me. Gather the others. Without waiting for her response, I plunged deeper into the water, the glow intensifying. The moment I submerged the oar into the depths, the light spread like wildfire, pushing back the shadows. As I lifted it again, I could see the anguished faces of those trapped, bathing in its glow. You can do this, I shouted, urging them on. Reach for the light. The water shimmered, rippling with energy. One by one, the figures began to move closer, propelled by an unseen force. They stretched their arms, clawing for the light, and I felt a rush of hope surge through me. Emily, now! I called. She nodded, grasping the oar tightly and flinging it toward the nearest figure. The oar arched through the air, and when it landed on the surface of the water, it burst into a radiant wave, enveloping the nearest spirit. It shimmered for an instant, then vanished, pulled back into the light. My heart raced. It worked, but as the shadows roared with fury, I turned my attention back to the water. The remaining figures were beginning to draw closer, their faces disturbed by the darkness. Fight against it, I urged them, willing my voice to break through the mounting chaos. Trust the light. Emily followed my lead, throwing the oar toward the others. One by one, they disappeared into the energy, spirits freed from their watery prison. Yet the darkness roiled behind us, the growling creature inches away from us now. I could see its shape, I could feel its rage rippling through the air, chasing our every move. Suddenly, the glow from the oar waned, flickering like a dying candle. No! I shouted, panicking. It's going out. Just when I thought I was out of options, a light flared within me. I focused, channeling every ounce of determination, every heartbeat that echoed my desperate wish to escape back to the surface. The shadows stretched toward me, seething. The creature's form solidified, a mass of darkness clawing at the boundary between us and the safety of the shore. I swung the oar one last time, summoning all the energy I could muster. This ends now. The light erupted from the oar in a blinding flash. A wave of energy rushed towards the shadows, colliding with the dark mass and sending a shockwave through the air. The growls turned into a terrible howl as tendrils of shadow recoiled, slithering back as if burned by the light. As the shadows retreated, I felt the pull of the warm tide retreating. Go! I urged, pushing past the freezing grasp of despair and darkness. Get to the shore! Emily took my hand, and together we raced back toward the rocky edge. The light rippled against our backs, shielding us from the horrors that desperately sought to pull us back in. I could see the glowing forms of those we had freed ahead, calling us forth as clearing space opened beneath the weight of our shared fear. One last push and we sailed through the breaking waves, collapsing onto the shore, breathless and stunned by the escape. The figures hovered near us, their outlines flickering with newfound freedom. The creature behind us wailed in fury, thrashing against the wall of light, its presence lesser now. It would not follow. But even as we lay there, gasping for breath, I noticed a flicker of uncertainty in the waves. Above the retreating darkness, the painting loomed in the distance, the gallery still standing strong. What happens now? I whispered, turning to Emily, my heart still racing. Are we truly free? She sank beside me, exhaustion plastered across her face. I don't know, she murmured, her voice shaky. Maybe. We stopped it for now, but did we really understand what we awakened? We stared at the water, the shadows still swirling, the waves lapping at our feet. For a moment, I imagined the light growing dim again, the creature rising anew. I felt the weight of what we'd escaped, but also the burden of knowing this was just the beginning. I could sense the whispers returning, hauntingly beautiful and full of promise. They swirled around us, teasing remnants of shadows. We didn't have answers, only more questions. And as we struggled to orient ourselves, uncertain if we had truly triumphed, I realized that whatever we conquered today, the painting and its mysteries would linger, waiting for the next moment of weakness. I looked back at the shadows retreating, still wary. Would I ever know the true nature of the gallery? Supernatural or mere imagination? I guess for now, it didn't matter. Together, we sat in silence, the sounds of the waves mingling with the whispers as reality settled back in. I didn't know what was next, but I couldn't shake the feeling that our brush with darkness wasn't over. I moved on, not without trepidation, but with a firm resolve to face whatever haunted us next. The gallery would still loom large behind us, a reminder of the very delicate line we danced across today, a line between light and shadow. And I had a feeling our story was far from finished.